text is never, ever, 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 ever an appropriate medium for emotional communication or an emotionally charged subject or a subject that's open to interpretation or a subject where tone matters. Never, ever, ever, ever use text as a platform or email. Any written word, there's no tone. They can't interpret it. So they're going to interpret it by the story in their head, which is probably informed by the conflict that you have or had when you last saw each other face to face.
Welcome to another episode of Ignite the King podcast. I'm Dr. Michael Diamond, co-host here. G. Russell Reynolds. Welcome, brother.
What's up, man?
Excited to talk today, and welcome if you're listening to this for the first time. Welcome. And if you've been following us for a while, welcome back. Tonight? Is it tonight?
Tonight, this morning, whenever you're listening to this.
We are getting into something real important. We are deep in our warrior season now, and it's warrior communication time. It's how to deal with a charge. It's how to correctly communicate. What we have found so much is how men, especially men in our group, the potential for just really messing up communication, whether through text message, through whatever platform, there's a right place and a right time. And man, some tragedies have been averted, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I'd say dodging bullets for sure. Or train wrecks. And sometimes the train wreck happens first and then we go, oh.
Right. That's what we want to avoid here.
Yeah. So we want to help you men not to have the train wreck in your intimate relationship, in your friendships and your work relationships, whoever you're communicating with, or perhaps you're not communicating with. We want to be able to help improve that to make your life a little easier and to help you get what you actually want. Ding, ding, ding.
Absolutely. There's two things, that we talk about a lot as a man, as an awakened man, especially in relationship. One is presence, right? We talk about how to be present, how to hold space, and all the actively listen. But then there is communication. There is actually, then it does need to come out the other way. And so often men will mess this up. Well, that's what she said. You kind of need to read between the lines there a little bit. Mm-hmm. This is where the emotional intelligence comes online, where it's like, can you read the cues? Yeah, just go be with your friend. That's fine. Hey, she said, go be with my friend. That's fine.
Fine.
So, fine, right?
No, it's fine. Just go. Don't do it.
I mean, I feel like this is, we could just go on this for so long because this has probably been the single biggest factor in the breakdown in relationship, especially intimate relationship, business relationship, friendships, especially in these last 4 years where things have gotten really hot, really divided. Now it's like, who do you identify with? Identity politics, virtue signaling.
We're going there too.
Well, we got to sprinkle it on the top. But, how many families, which maybe by design, have been broken up because maybe there's a difference in worldview. There's a difference in and how to communicate that. And when has a political discussion ever ended in like, I really see your point and I think I might consider that? Not happening, right? So I think this is just rampant. We need to address this right away.
Well, let me jump in on that one since you opened it up.
Tee him up, knock him down.
Yeah, right. So I think maybe the first time or one of the first times I ended up in Facebook jail. And man, honestly, my perspective is if you haven't ended up in Facebook or social media jail by this point, you're just not trying hard enough. So it was not hate speech. It was not something super divisive. It was a picture of red ants and black ants in a jar.
That was spicy.
The message underneath said, if you put red ants and black ants in a jar, they will coexist peacefully. But if you then shake up the jar, the red ants think the black ants have attacked them. The black ants think the red ants have attacked them, and they will kill each other. The question is not who's right, the red or the black. The question is who's shaking the fucking jar.
Ding, ding, ding.
Boom. Blocked my post, fact-checked it, and put me in Facebook jail for that. Really? So that, to me, is pretty close to pointing to the truth. That's the part they don't want you to think about. They, I'm doing air quotes, they want us to remain divided. And you people and you people and you guys said this and those crazy, other side of the camp, whatever it is, as long as they keep us divided, they keep us disempowered. And
Mm-hmm.
when we can skip all of that. So there's actually a man in this brotherhood who has a completely different political view than me. And there was a time when it was very emotionally charged for him. And as I've said before, when emotions go up, IQs go down every time. That's for all of us. And there was a time he didn't want to talk to me, didn't even want to be in the brotherhood as long as I was in it because I had a different political view. And how crazy is that? When has that ever happened before the last 4 years?
Right.
And what we did is came together and say, look, and um, when I had to cross that bridge with him, it wasn't about proving that I'm right or that my side has more factual. Nothing. It was finding the common ground. Do you love your children? Yeah. Yeah, I have a love. I don't have children, but I have a love for children as well, and like in a fatherly way, like wanting to protect the innocent. Do you love your country? Do you love the sense of freedom that we have in this country? Yeah, me too. Okay, cool. So let's look at who's shaking the jar. It's not about left or right. It's not about this or that. It's, as Michael would say, lower mental, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in IgKnight, we have what's called the sacred third. So instead of this or that, black or white, if you look at a triangle, you got those two lower corners, but up above, when the two can come together, there is a sacred third option that most people aren't thinking of. So I think a lot of the communication, no matter what the platform or who you're communicating with, it's about finding that sacred third, that common ground. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And if we can bring it more granular, right down to a very practical example,
Mm-hmm.
how many messages get misinterpreted via text message? I think this is like one of the
Yeah.
core places that communication breakdown happens. We've said it many times. We've experienced it with each other, with all kinds of places where the tone, the intent of a message will not translate regardless of the emojis in a text message. I'm sorry. You're not. And if you're doing talk to text where you're talking in your text message, you're saying it with the intention and vigor and energy that you're coming across with, but it's being read back not in that way. And if you really look at text message, SMS, short messaging system is designed to be yes, no, ETA, that kind of stuff. And now it's become what it's become. So if a person responds from that place and you've had all this intention going into a message, that Key and Peele skit sums it up perfectly, where it's
Yeah.
completely misinterpreted every time.
Yeah.
You and not always to an extreme level, but you cannot convey a message how you want it to be heard digitally like that and then expect that person to hear it exactly how you intended it. It's virtually impossible,
Man,
right?
let's just establish this. Text is never, ever, 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 ever an appropriate medium for emotional communication or an emotionally charged subject or a subject that's open to interpretation or a
Right.
subject where tone matters. Never, ever, ever, ever use text as a platform or email. Any written word, there's no tone. They can't interpret it. So they're going to interpret it by the story in their head, which is probably informed by the conflict that you have or had when you last saw each other face to face.
Right.
Don't ever use text to communicate an emotional message. Use text to go, hey, can we talk
Right.
face to face on the phone?
Well, that's a
Use
cultural
text
thing
to
now.
establish a second. Yeah.
Sorry,
Well,
finish your thought, please.
yeah, no, that was it. Use text to establish a second platform of communication. Hey, can we meet up? Hey, can we talk?
Exactly. And that's it right there, because in a conversation, meaning with, you're talking with someone, and from the
Mhm.
conversation you develop what's actually going to happen, right? That sacred third, as you mentioned, the emergent property that happens in communion, in communication, where it doesn't happen when it's just data bits going back and forth, right?
Right.
What if also the timing of text messages is a factor here. Like sometimes getting a text message and you don't see it right away, or, maybe you choose not to respond. Like, hey, I want to think about that. Then does the other party make a story about that? I mean,
Right.
it could just unravel in so many different ways
Mhm.
that, and it's funny, there's a cultural thing. So I was jumping in with before. So sorry about that, where
Oh,
it's like,
my
you
apologies.
called me. Like if you call someone, it's like, oh, how rude. You just called me.
So weird.
Now you got to
So
like
weird.
text someone again that you're going to call them. Can we set up a call date? Right. But just to pick up the phone and call someone, and how much can get sorted out. Even if I'm texting back and forth with someone, I don't want to sit there and type this conversation. Why don't I just call them, spend a minute
Right.
on the phone and actually connect and get what we have to get done, right? And I get sometimes you're not
Yeah.
in a place you can talk. This is not a hard and fast for everything, right? But too often we are seeing this text thing go down south. I'm curious if you have any more thoughts on this, but I'd
Yeah.
like to give this example, a couple of examples we've seen in our group just in the last 3 days that
Yeah.
bear teaching.
Sure. um, uh, okay. Pause, Kevin. Kevin, pause. Um, we're stepping on each other a lot. So I want to make a habit of waiting till you're complete, but make a habit of creating space for me to speak as well. I feel like you're on a roll, so you're going, and I'm like, and I'm afraid I'm going to ruin the sound quality. But when I do that,
Okay, I feel like we both had like 2 or 3 minute stretches of sharing, and I think
yeah,
now we're going to get in a little more back and
yeah,
forth.
I'm just usually you and I are better about not stepping on each other's lines, and I think we're a little off this morning. So I just want to take a second to
Okay,
recalibrate that.
go ahead.
And it's me as much as you, not blaming or anything like that. Okay, resuming in 3, 2. Yeah, to your point about the why are we having this conversation through text? If it goes more than 3 volleys back and forth, I'm calling. Like this is now inefficient. It's taking me longer and again open to misinterpretation if I'm texting somebody. Why don't I just pick up the phone and call? And another thing you said that I really liked is when you're speaking with somebody. So men, whether it's through text or face to face, here's a big point of awareness for communication, especially with your woman. Are you speaking with someone or at someone? Big difference. Right? Are you trying to be right? Or are you trying to find resolution?
Mm-hmm.
You trying to be happy, or are you trying to come together, or are you trying to dominate or prove your point or make them wrong? Right? That's a huge awareness in communication. Speak with them, and I know you wanted to share some examples of the text, so I don't want to go too far away from that.
Yeah,
because they're very valuable.
they are. But just from a macro view, how many of you men out there are speaking to your lover, your significant other, like you're speaking to a coworker? I know I had to
Mm,
learn that one, right? And
mm,
crossing that boundary of like home and work, especially if you work from home, right? You're like walking in the other room. So how do you reset? How do you realize who you're actually being with, right?
mm,
And it's the people we love the most, we wind up hurting the most through that communication, which is a bit ironic, actually. So yeah, one of the men in the group this week has been having some friction with his father, and how his father had made all these commitments to his health after a health scare, and basically didn't follow up on any of it. And his son was getting frustrated, angry, upset, and went back and forth a little bit in text, and was met with some resistance, to say the least.
Yeah, well, to be clear, he unloaded
Right.
in text,
Yeah. And it was
dumped
unloaded
all of
back
his
on him.
emotions. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And then he chimed in our group. We have a bonfire, which is a daily communication check-in, and a man was sharing about it, and this is what I'm about to send back, and was all fired up and ready to like go ballistic,
whoa,
full on ballistic, right? And we jumped in there and we're like,
whoa.
yeah, that is not a text conversation. That is a face-to-face conversation, right? And he was, because he lives in the same town or area as his father, he was able to actually go over there, and he realized it was
Yeah,
like we said at the beginning of the episode, like averted a big shitstorm, a big tragedy potentially.
Right.
So,
Right.
and now there's a new common ground. What do you know about that? Right? Like, shocker that
Yeah, right.
actually sitting down with someone and going through that can make that difference. So,
Well, and if I can add one piece to that, we as warriors, right? We're warriors of the heart, right? We have to keep our hearts open. We choose to respond, not react. Because when he went over there, his dad's like, "What the fuck are you doing here?"
right.
He could have reacted to that, and he just went, "Come on, pops, let's not do this. Sit down with me," and didn't react, but responded because he knew his father is on the defensive because of the text that he had sent. So
Right.
he had to diffuse that situation and chose to consciously do so. So, man, if you can do that, if you can take a stance of responding rather than reacting, and I would also add not react or respond to the words that are being said as much as the message underneath.
Right.
The message underneath is his dad didn't feel safe. His dad felt judged. His dad felt shame from himself and what he had projected onto his son. So can you respond to that and diffuse that instead of reacting to the words that are coming out of his mouth or her mouth if it's your spouse that you're talking about or talking with?
Yeah. I think this point can't be underscored enough because if you're going in hot, like even if you're like, yeah, I'll go face to face, and you're hot, it's still gonna end badly, right?
Yeah.
So this man was able to share what was going on for him, raw and real, in his group, in our group, his brotherhood, and then go there knowing that was probably going to be the response he was going to get, and be prepared for that. And like you say, not react, but actually respond.
Yeah.
That's a skill set that, as I said, can't be underscored enough. So
Right.
good point. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Continuing, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm not railroading if you had a direction you were going.
No,
but
I just wanted to amplify that point because
yeah,
it's not just the platform of communication, but obviously the energy from which you're
right.
coming to that because sometimes you have something you want to address with someone. You're like, hey, I want to address this with you, and they could be. And I learned this from one other man in our group where I was listening to his podcast actually, and he was saying, hey, not right now. I'm having a bad day, and I do want to have that talk, but today's probably not the best day for me to have that or receive that and to have that boundary, because I think that's the message when it's received is also really important. That timing.
So setting a loving but firm boundary instead of collapsing your own boundary and then resenting the other person for the choice that you made. Interesting. And I say that playfully, but man, how many times have we done that? How many times have you done that? Where you say yes when you really want to say no, just like, you know what, I'm having a rough day. I'm not in the space to receive this well. I do want to have this conversation. You're important to me. This is important to me. Can we table this for right now?
Yeah.
When that's what you want to say, that's what you should say, but you go, fine, what is it? And now you resent the other person because you caved. It's you. It's not them. Right? So again, that's kind of that warrior mindset is keep those boundaries. Loving, you're not an asshole about it, right? But set your boundaries to protect yourself. The other thing I would say is this is almost cliche because I'm sure you've heard it before. Seek to understand before being understood. This is really, really simple. And again, it's so easy to get caught up in the words that are being said and the circumstances. It's never about the circumstances. Michael says this all the time in our men's group. It's not about the circumstances. It's about how you respond to them. It's about you within the circumstances. So, if your woman or your friend is saying, you did this and you did that, and why don't you go do that? Listen to what's underneath it.
Right.
Try to understand her point of view. Try to understand the emotion behind it. Try to understand what she's really feeling. Does she feel unsafe? Does she feel unsupported? Does she feel unseen? These are huge. And if you can address that, the thing underneath it, not the words coming out of her mouth, suddenly the conflict is dissolved and it disappears like a puff of smoke. It's magic.
Yeah. I think the paradox in all of this, if I can jump on this a little bit,
Yeah, please.
is how to, because I could hear you men out there and be like, okay, so how do I do that? Right? Like,
Yeah.
give me, and the paradox is you got to work on yourself, because as you do, and as you create more bandwidth, more emotional intelligence, more just cultivation of desire in yourself, then those conversations, one, they probably don't happen as often because you're not getting frustrated as much. And then when things do come up, you do have the bandwidth to be with it. Most of conflict happens because we've given, like you're talking about, not holding the boundary, giving away your power, and then resenting it, and then trying to reclaim some of it so it comes in even harder, right? So if you take care of yourself, if you take care of your body, you take care of your emotions, you are actively working on your relationship, on your communication, then these things, they really aren't that big of a deal. But, and as you say, it's how you respond. It's the energy from which you create that determines how you're going to experience those circumstances and the story you're going to make about it. And the bottom line is, whether it's in relationship, whether it's in business, whether it's in friendship, there's going to be conflict. There's going to be challenge. There's going to be growth that has to occur. It's not going to be the honeymoon phase forever. And in fact, it's the people that you can have those things with and go through that and come out the other side. What's always true, the bond is stronger. If you can make it through something, then you're stronger. It's just like the body and the disease state, right? When your immune system is challenged and you get quote unquote sick, you actually get stronger because now your body has a memory and has trained and had to fight against something and has learned that. It's like building that muscle. So it's the same thing. So the self-growth aspect of this is absolutely the place where this communication really begins. And a lot of it's just getting honest with yourself.
Yeah. I think another pitfall, and it's a beautiful point, like we have to do the work. We can't be emotionally immature teenagers, right? Or act like emotionally immature teenagers and throw temper tantrums like children and expect to have a good relationship or good communication. And I think another pitfall that is easy for us to fall into as men is, when we talk about seek to understand before being understood, it's like we want to understand our woman's feelings or the other person's feelings, what's really underneath it. But we want ours understood too. If her feelings are hurt or his feelings are hurt about this thing, mine are too. And I want to be able to express my hurt and express what's not sitting well with me.
Right.
The danger is the tit for tat.
Mm-hmm.
The danger is when they express their feelings, you go, yeah, well, mine too. Da-da. And now you're just going back and forth.
That's that lower mental.
If there's defense, explanation, or justification of your point of view, there is no communication. So our work is in being able to hear them fully. And we were just talking to a man yesterday. He's like, here's your 3 magic words in your relationship with your woman. When she's unloading all that shit and you want to react, you want to go, oh yeah, well, here's your 3 magic words. Ready? It's not I love you. 3 magic words are tell me more.
Mm-hmm.
Let her
Say
finish.
it again.
Let her finish. Tell me more. I hear you. Tell me more. Is there more? And then fully be present in whatever the fuck she's saying. Receive it. And sit with that and try to feel how she feels. Then and only then, after she's complete, after you have validated what she's feeling, or the other person. Again, this could be a coworker. It doesn't have to be a woman.
Right.
It could be a business partner. After you've validated what that person's saying, and another great way is to repeat back what you heard them say. What I'm hearing you say is blank. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. Guess what? Now they feel heard. Now they're not so defensive.
Or no, right? That's actually...
Yeah, or they say, no, that's not what I said.
Right.
Okay, please tell me again.
Right. That's
I want
equally
to
as
fully
important.
understand it. Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. Yeah. Then, and only then, can I share with you my feelings? And working towards resolution. It's not about, well, you did this and you made me feel.
Right.
You know what? I felt really devalued. You know, when you said that, I felt like my presence or my contribution just wasn't important to you. When you did this and this, I felt this. Not right. That's a difference. This was the data. You did this and this. This was the way I felt as a reaction to it. You're taking responsibility for your feelings and expressing them without attack, anger, or accusation. Now you can have a conversation. Now you can have resolution. Now you can come to a higher understanding together. Love to hear your thoughts, Michael.
Yeah. Well, this is the reason we're having this conversation right now is this is a higher level conversation. This is a conscious conversation. And I hear this thing about like conscious relationships, conscious uncoupling. So there's this movement to be conscious about everything, right? Nowadays. And the irony of it is most of it's coming from our subconscious. That'll be a story for another episode here.
Right.
But it is bringing awareness to what was being missed, right? Because so much is activated or processed through the subconscious that we often miss out on the nuance of things. And communication is all about nuance. Most of communication, and we've been saying this for years, I mean, well over half of how a message is received is the physiology of the person giving the message. So if you're reading a text message, there's absolutely 0% physiology involved in that message.
Yeah.
So now you're interpreting it from the words, which the words are less than 10% of every message that's received by you and your nervous system.
Say that
Less
again.
than 10% are the words. Again,
So what's the other
half
90%?
over half of it's your physiology, right? What state you're in, what emotions you're running, where you're coming from, your intention of a message. Then about a third of it or more is the tonality, the way you use your voice, the exclamatory remarks, everything of the tone, pitch, timbre, all of that is over a third. So again, 90% is nothing to do with the actual words that were said, but yet all of these very important conversations, ones that will end relationships, are being done in that form. Again, whether text or email or some other social media comment section. Ooh, that's a good way to get your message heard correctly, right? It
or
is
even a voicemail.
What's that?
Even a voicemail, like it's you can have tone in a voicemail, but guys, if you're doing a breakup through voicemail, that's cowardly.
Or voice note right now.
Yeah, but it's
and how
just
many
cowardly.
You read the text of a voice note without listening to the text, the voice note, right?
Yeah. Here's a bonus. If I could just jump in real quick, Michael. Here's a bonus for you men that are watching this on YouTube instead of listening to the podcast. If we know that up to 90% of human communication is nonverbal, I've been in conversations with somebody. I'm like, can I tell you how I feel? Look, this isn't working. I want to express my feelings. And the person literally does this and crosses their arms and takes a deep sigh and puts their head down like, oh God, here it comes. Guess what? Conversation's already over before it ever started. There's no communication at that point because they've just walled up, shut down. I don't really want to say a damn thing to them. So be aware if you're displaying that kind of physicality or physiology, you're ruining your chances of a positive outcome when you do that.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that, what state you're in when you're receiving that, right? And it's not always convenient. We were watching, remember we showed a video at our most recent immersion about a father telling the story about his son who had committed suicide, and he had left this note and basically said, tell my story. And, it was really powerful. But he was sharing how one of the men in the audience had asked him a question like, what do you feel like was the moment or the time? And he's like, I think it was a accumulation of moments. How many times he wanted to talk, but I'm on a call and I can't, I'll be busy. Right there. Right. And he's like, which time was it really that I just wasn't available? And then the unthinkable happens. So his point of all that was, it's never going to be convenient. It's never going to be at the right time. But you have to be around and available and be open to just when it happens as well, right? That's part of empathy, is like respecting and understanding where someone's at that time and being able to, as you were alluding to, putting yourself in their shoes. That's a powerful thing to do, is to put someone else's shoes on. It's a really, and I think that can only happen again in this kind of communication that we're talking about, this honest, open, vulnerable, non-reactive. I think that's the biggest thing. You keep making the point of when, and I won't say when emotions run high, because things could be emotional, but when it can get hot, right? We all know that experience. And then it becomes around defending your position. Like you said, the conversation is over, right?
Yeah.
And how do you reset in that? Sometimes it's like, okay, how do you in that moment say, okay, I'm going to walk out and come back in, or I'm going to go reset. Like, this is important to me. And I realize that I'm coming at it this way and that's not serving the situation. Again, you want to talk about a conscious conversation. I think that's an important takeaway, because again, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationship, especially in relationship where things can get heated, there's so many children, finances, all the things around adulting, frankly, for anybody, that just can feel fucking overwhelming. And again, tinfoil hat going on, the last 4 years, that dial has been really turned up, right? And again, we can list off all the just things we have to sort of deal with nowadays that we just weren't there. So all that being said, it's even more important to put energy toward this, why we felt it was so important to talk about this. And if we can start to shift maybe into some examples, I think if you want to share one of the men from our group, just yesterday we were speaking to him, and the change he made in the moment and the result that it got was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, he had a default pattern of always trying to be right and wanting to make his point, wanting to be heard, and wanting to win the conversation. Nobody's winning.
Good way to put it.
Yeah, right. And he would pretend to listen to his woman, and he would pretend he was like, yeah, but he's really just putting the next bullet in the chamber of what he's going to say next. Right, of how he's going to win this conversation. It's not a debate. It's not a courtroom hearing. Right, we're not trying to win. Right? We're trying to create resolution. And what his awareness was through our work together, when Michael and I spoke with him, is that, oh shit, I adopted that from my father. My father used to do that to my mother all the time, and it never ended well, ever. And I have taken on that same behavior. It's not even mine, but he made it his when he adopted it. So that awareness allowed him to drop that, to let it go, to shed that toxic behavior that has not been serving his relationship at all, and to really be present with her and listen. And guys, here's the thought. Michael, I'm going on a limb here. Tell me if I'm crazy. When somebody's coming at you, yeah, thank you. You're crazy.
What are you going to say?
Well, I guess we could have established that from the beginning of the episode.
That's right.
This is my co-host, G. Russell Reynolds. He's crazy. Yeah. You're telling me I live in here. I know.
There's no in there, Russell.
I am all. So when somebody's coming at you, right, pointing your finger, you did this, they're angry. Instead of reacting to that, instead of focusing on you, instead of defending, what if you put on these special magic glasses that allowed you to see through that and see that underneath it, they're hurt and they're scared? No matter what the situation is. And by the way, I have in my martial arts and close quarters combative self-defense, I've had arguments with some top level guys that are stone cold killers, were underground fighters, like cage fights before the UFC, no rules. And we got into an argument and anger. And what was underneath it? His feelings were hurt. He felt hurt.
Yep.
And felt unsafe.
Misunderstood.
By things that misunderstood, felt unsafe by things I had done. He didn't feel safe in our friendship. That he didn't feel that he could trust me because of whatever. So when I was able to take myself out of it, not make it all about me, and what's underneath this? What's really going on? And address that, not the circumstance, not the behavior. Well, guess what? We're closer than ever now.
Mm-hmm.
So what would it be like if we could put on those magic glasses and just see beneath the words being said, see beneath the circumstances, just go, they feel hurt, they feel scared on some level, whether it's afraid that they can't trust me or afraid to be vulnerable or whatever, and address that. How do you think conversations and communication would go?
I'm going to go with much better.
Yeah, just a thought. Guess I'm not that crazy after all.
I like the limb you went out on there. You know, that man in that moment that you're talking about, he put it down and didn't react and reply to that text message right away. So as we're getting to the end here, to bring it into actionables, because often we'll hear a message or how we hear it, as we've been talking about, and then boom, we want to just get it right back. And it's like, maybe not. You know, there's the old practice of writing a message, then deleting it, like saying everything you want to say and then deleting it. Maybe not doing that in the text field and accidentally hitting send, but something to be aware of. But to wait on it for a minute, take it in, process it. Not everything needs an exact response in that moment, timing wise.
An immediate response.
Right. And he didn't. And he caught himself. And as far as like a strategy, the reality is, man, you're going to probably fuck this up. You're going to respond to a message incorrectly. You're going to misinterpret, misread something, be misunderstood. So the idea is to intervene more often and not let it happen as much. And it'll make communication that much more simple. So for this man, he was able to do that. He literally was able to walk away, come back to it, and take ownership. And instead of choosing to be right, which is, yes, as you said, based on just what he had been conditioned and learned to do, he decided to try something different. And the result was pretty great. And the response back was all hearts and kisses and hugs. And and then to even celebrate that, like, oh, more of that. That's the kind of response that we're looking for. Okay, well, what did I do? Okay, I responded differently. So it's not like poof, you just let it go. I really want to emphasize doing the work, because now before he didn't realize he was doing it. Now he's responsible because he knows that that's what he does. And he identified the shadow behavior, and even more importantly, the belief structure that's running underneath, and underneath that, where he took that on. There's still more work to do, but now he can be vigilant to it. Now he can say, I know that's how, when I'm stressed out, running low energy, reacting, this is what I do. And that awareness is, as we talk about our AAA, awareness, acknowledgement, action, then he can have acknowledgement for like, wow, I'm probably coming off like an asshole. Being right is kind of coarse. So that's a huge change.
Yeah.
So find the victory, find the wins. That's a huge one. So amazing that this has all just shown up in the last couple of days, that I think are examples that you men out there are probably facing on a day-to-day basis. I know I am. I imagine Russell is too. We're constantly evolving our communication back and forth. I mean, that's just what we have to do, but we're still here. We're still in it. We're still doing it. Right. And I think I could share that we've become stronger as a result of it, because we're still here. And how many relationships have you cut off because of a miscommunication?
Right.
Or the story you created about it. So vital subject. I think we'll come back to communication a lot. If you have any closing thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah. What do you think about actionables? I could say that word, actionables. I think first, respond, don't react. Second, text is never an effective means for communication when there's an emotionally charged subject, something that's open to interpretation, or where tone matters. What would be some other actionables that you could offer?
Yeah. Not responding right away, giving space. Also holding a boundary of when it's good for you for communication, and knowing if you're in a state where you can receive a message.
A
And
loving boundary.
a loving boundary. Not as a way to avoid, because you still have to have that conversation, but to get the highest outcome possible, to be in that state. It's like the Japanese, when they do business together, they will not do business until they party with you. Like that, party first, and then you talk business. Kind of like on the golf course, you don't talk business on the first 9 holes. Like that's just faux pas. You wait till the back 9, right? So there's just etiquette around when, timing. I mean, don't you want your message to be received in the highest possible way, right? So that's what we're going for.
Yeah. And I would offer an example of a loving boundary. Like, hey, I need a minute to sit with this so I can respond authentically. Or I've had a really rough day. Can we talk about this tomorrow? An example of a non-loving boundary. I'll deal with you later. That's not going to work. Don't say that. Right? Not now. And that's like 2 words. That's not a loving boundary. So be aware of where your come from is, man.
Absolutely. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up here, men. We hope that you've received a ton of value out of this episode. There's just so much around communication. Likes, subscribe, share this video. Get on ignitetheking.com. Find out about the programs we have coming up. We have an immersion happening in the end of November. We're accepting applications for now. So reach out, send us a message, and we'd love to talk with you.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate your time.